but he hasn't yet. So we'll begin. Just a couple comments to begin with. First, thanks for everybody for coming. Are there any intros that we still need to do? People need to know what face
Uh,
goes with name.
yeah, Barry, I thought it would be at least helpful for maybe us to do a round robin of just name and title and which company they're with, if that works.
Sure, be good.
Do we want to, we'll start online and then we can go in person round?
Sure, sure.
Work? All right. I'll start off. So Tevis Piper, COO with Lightcraft Mac Mountain and president of GWI. I'll hand it off to Adam.
Hey, morning everyone. Adam Gasson, CTO at Mac Mountain Lightcraft.
Neil.
Cool. Neil Katz, CFO of Mac Mountain.
Drew.
Drew Deaton, Finance Operations, Mac Mountain.
Tom.
Tom Ceciere, President Northeast, GWI.
Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Vaughn, and I am the Chief of Staff and Alex's assistant.
Bruce.
Yeah, I am Bruce Walker, part of the IMB board. I happen to be in Nashville at a conference at the moment, but
Oh, I'm jealous.
Nice. All right, Barry, why don't we hand it off to you in person?
Okay, so I'm Barry Ware. I'm the chairman of the IMB board. And this is Carrie Reed. She takes secretarial duties for us.
Patrick Nettles, IMB.
Joshua Bohar, Director of Outside Plant and Fiber Engineering for GWI and Mac Mountain. Will Duquette, Director of Network Ops for GWI and Mac Mountain.
Chris Whalen, Chief Engineer at Mac Mountain Lightcraft.
Okay. Well, since this is a formal meeting, I have to officially call it to order. So it's at 10:03. We did have on the agenda to review the minutes. That was just for the IMB folks of the previous meeting, but we didn't get those prepared in time. So we're going to postpone those for now, and we'll catch up on those in September. And we have members from the public here too. If we could hold many of the public comments until we get to the end, until we get through the discussion, that'd be great. If you can make notes of them so we don't miss anything, that'd be really helpful. So the primary agenda here is why everybody's here, just to review the status of things in our interactions with Mac Mountain. So I gave an agenda, which I believe all you guys have. It's just on the management style. Functionally, if you ask anybody in town how the network is performing, I think they'd say it's doing well as far as they're concerned. But from our perspective operationally, we think there's areas that are defective that need to be improved. And networks need care and feeding. And if you're not ahead of the curve in the network, you're behind the curve, it can bite you pretty badly. So we want to always wait, at least as far as the IMB goes, we always want to be ahead of that curve if we can. So we had discussions with GWI last June about taking a proactive stance in terms of operating the network. We didn't see that get moved forward very much. And right now, IMB feels like we are requesting things of them rather than them leading us. And we'd like to see that changed because it's really their role to provide us with information, insights, things we should be attending to rather than us trying to scurry around and look for them, because that's not really, in some cases, our expertise. So if you guys would like to react to that, that'd be great.
Sure. I'll kind of run point and we'll kind of pull in the rest of the Mac Mountain folks as needed, for this discussion. So I agree, right? I mean, when we're talking about the love that we show to customers, we want you to feel that. We want you to see the work that we're doing on the back end. It sounds like we're not conveying that properly, right? So, what I really want to instill in the team here is that we operate this network every day. We continue to react to any problems in a timely fashion. And I think that one of the major things that we're missing here is communicating that to you, right? So when we talk about the proactiveness, maintaining this network, planning for upgrades, things like that. traditionally through the years, we had a cadence with, the previous IMB representatives, right? That's obviously changed here. We're trying to work out what that new footing should look like with you and how you need your information, right? So we're aware that this stuff is going to continue to change, and you're going to have different requirements or different data that you'd like to see it, or in a different format. So I think that we're all here today to facilitate that, right? So to listen to the issues you have, provide you with concrete answers and ideally responses, that for written responses in a timely manner. So that's our goal here. So as far as proactive management, do you specifically have what is your big pain point on that? Like where do you feel like we're neglecting the network?
Well, the audit, number one. I mean, everything that's on this agenda is pretty much what we're looking for. There's other things I'm think that need to be dealt with, but they're further down the list, so to speak, but this is the primary stuff.
Okay. So you want to just jump right into the audit and talk about that?
Sure, we can go to number two.
So when talking about the audit, right, like here's the interesting thing, right? Like, per our contract with you, it's an inspection that's supposed to happen yearly, right? So the inspection is a visual inspection that happens at key locations throughout your network. That's the way that's written in the operating agreement. Now,
I think I would disagree with that, but we can agree to disagree.
well, I mean, I'm just going by the language that's in there and what the intent was, right? So when we signed this, the intent was not to shortchange anybody on the proactive maintenance. It was really to say that, hey, look, the inspection that we're talking about is that, we come on the island, we look at, the POPs, the FDHs, any of the key locations to make sure that there's nothing major that's going on or needs immediate attention. That was kind of the crux of that particular item. Now, that doesn't absolve us from proactive maintenance. The idea behind the maintenance piece was supposed to be like a continual feedback loop between island residents, island contractors. And as we get that information, we just respond to it immediately. And, we issue whatever fixes are required. So way back when you'd first taken over, you had requested some numbers for maintenance and like for anything that's been deferred. And so what I did was I kicked off an internal audit. So at GWI's expense, we had a GWI representative go out and literally dig into the splice cases, dig into like a much deeper dive than what we would have traditionally done for visual inspection, right? Visual inspections from the ground, drive around, you look up, like this, obviously anything like branches, tree limbing, things like that, we would address that, right? Like as the ride up from a visual perspective. This audit that I had our internal staff do was in an attempt to give you kind of like that ceiling of potential expense, right? So we knew that there's some transfers and stuff that are required, and we know that through the visual inspection, there's actually not a lot of plant that's in bad shape. But when you dig into it, there's things like the cables were pulling out some splice cases. You're not going to see that from the ground, right? The remedy for that, unfortunately, if there's no slack, is literally replacing sections of cable, which gets costly, right? Now, does it need to be done right now? Is it imminent threat? No, right? This stuff, in all likelihood, has been like that for many years. But should it be addressed? Yes. So when we started this conversation, I want to say it was a year ago, right? I mean, it was a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
That was the ceiling. That was, we know that in this sampling, this 10% roughly sampling,
Right.
there is this stuff we discovered. We extrapolated that and said, hey, you know what? This is what it could be. This is the max. And that was at your request, right? Because you wanted to know what should we budget? Like, is it $1 million or is it, $10, right? So that's how we generated that range. And I know you had some concern about, why we're at 40,000 instead of 200,000. Well, I can tell you that 40,000 right now is just for like the pole transfers that we're pending, right? And so kind of that visual inspections, the more obvious stuff that needs to happen. There's still other maintenance that needs to happen, right? So that other maintenance, the stuff we identified from the initial audit, that still needs to be fixed. And does it go to $200,000? Remember, that's estimate based off of the sampling, right? So it's some number between that. So when we'd originally talked about this, we talked about like what number can you stomach, right? Because not all the stuff needs to be fixed immediately, but it does need to get taken care of at some point. So is that 50,000 a year, 100,000 a year? It's whatever you could reasonably stomach, and we would make it work. We'd stretch your dollar as far as we possibly could based off those priorities, right? So that's kind of the crux of the whole audit, that we keep saying, but it's not an audit, that we did the audit so we can figure out what we think the overarching problems are. Now, happy to do a full-on, straight-up audit. That is very costly. And we can give you an estimate for that, but I mean, to have a contractor go out and open up every splice case and look and document every single fiber, I mean, that's a totally different type thing, way outside the scope of the operator agreement, right? I mean, that is, well, I mean, network of this size would cost $200,000, just spitballing it, right? To have somebody spend a long time doing the documentation for this to determine what's wrong. Hence our recommendation to just, like, let's see what you can stomach for a budget, and let's fix the egregious stuff first. And then we'll kind of back into that. And, hard stop, whenever you say that's enough, we've hit our budget limit. We can't stomach anymore, and we can, continue to defer some of that maintenance. But make no mistake, I mean, there's maintenance that we don't even know about because it would involve that level of exploration. And we don't want to send a contractor out to just explore, right? Because then they find things that may not need to be fixed, right? So we want to have a really rigid control over that and really understand what's going on. So that's why the cadence is, let's identify first, what needs to be done. Then, like, some of the stuff that we know of during the first audit that we've done, the 10% audit, that definitely needs to be fixed. And then we'd evaluate again after those were completed, right? That was the original intent. Now, if you want to change that, happy to be flexible on whatever order you want it to be in.
Okay. Well, I think there's misunderstandings along this whole line because your perception of inspection and our perception of an audit are two different. It's two different things, and I don't think it's just semantical. We see it as some, so we have a good handle on what's going on here. Because we don't, with the average life expectancy of 5 or 40 years, we don't want to get our bond paid off and then all of a sudden we got to redo the whole fiber.
Sure.
So it's important to keep it maintained.
Agreed.
And right now we don't feel like it's being maintained as we expect it to be maintained.
May I ask why? Like, why?
Look at the audit. You guys started it. You had Hawkeye come out, and then your person that was in charge of the audit left the company or is no longer with the company. We have no idea what was done, what wasn't done. So
progress reports.
We have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, agreed. And progress reports, should have been provided along the way. It sounds like they were not. Bohar is in charge of the team that ultimately would generate those progress reports and keep you plugged into literally that project, right? So we're handling that as a separate project with separate tasks and separate line items. The maintaining it or the audit piece, again, I want to be clear that we want to do everything that's reasonable to maintain your network, right? And I don't believe in any step of the way right now that you're at risk of some major failure because of neglect.
Okay, right? How do you know that?
So fiber is robust, and the design itself, right, is such that if we're dealing with any type of degradation, this guy's going to see ONTs that are going to be an alarm. We're going to see like actual like ONTs going offline. We can see the performance of the network, and there is no degradation. Now, again, because fiber is pretty clear whether or not it's working or not, right? Like, so if we're getting an error-free signal back to the OLTs in the POP, I mean, there's no reason to believe that there's any impairment on the fiber, right? I mean, that's just straight up. Yeah, I mean, can you have like a squirrel chewing through fiber and not have hit a core? Yeah, absolutely. Again, no typical inspection. Nobody's going to go and drive, and locate every little squirrel chew, because like even when you know that there's a squirrel chew, you can't find it, right? I mean, when you're trying to support these things, I mean, it can be challenging. So, the typical way of operating networks is, unfortunately, on the fiber side, it has to be a little bit reactive because the network works great until a limb falls on it, right? I mean, that's our biggest repair problem, right? It's not through just fiber just crumbling or falling apart. It's always a pole hit, fires, like lightning strikes, things like that. Those things are obvious, right? They're obvious, and we would track that, and we would obviously issue whatever repair that needs to happen, and we restore the network to whatever it's supposed to be, right? I mean, and those repairs are permanent, right? I mean, it's not like if we're just splicing in copper with little barrel splices and stuff. We usually do, like, I mean, if it's a major issue, it'd be a whole section of fiber, like from one splice case to another, right? So it's a new section of fiber. Again, no reason to believe that wouldn't last another 50 years, right? I mean, fiber is pretty resilient to the elements.
Maybe to add one item too, Chris, and team is, this is the same level of inspection versus audit care that we provide to our own fiber networks and other networks in which we operate. So it's not like we are doing something different on your network with regard to how we maintain our own. So to Chris's point, a physical inspection driving out will help you get some level of, optical due diligence performed. You may start to identify some level of like areas in which you need to dial into further. But for the most part, some level of annual audit, done infrequently, is performed. And trying to do that every year, every quarter, semi-annually just kind of becomes very cost prohibitive to any owner and operator and doesn't necessarily like improve performance of the network. So I'd say just to say this is the same level of care we provide to our own networks. And to Chris's point, repair, quick response, addressing issues as they arise, tree falls down, wind damage, those are the typical level of maintenance that's performed most typically each year.
Yeah, back to that, because I'm meeting you guys for the first time. And how old's the network now?
It's 2017.
Oh, so it's young. It's like a baby. The analogy that comes to mind, I think, is this discrepancy, not just in the semantics, but that 200 rough estimate on the high level to the 30,000 on the OSP side. The OSP inspections, you kind of think of those as like your annual physical, right? We can go out and look at things from the ground, kind of get checked out. The sampling that Frank did, our internal team did, is kind of like a full body scan, right? And you kind of look at that, and you go, when I think about it at my age, I'm like, do I really want to know? Like, do I want to pay for it? Do I really want to know every little tiny thing that functionally I'm good with still? But you might find these more advanced kind of elements to it, and probably throw a lot of money at things that are still fully functioning, right? So when we open up the splice cases, you have a fully active network. It works great. There's always something you can find there that, this is doing this or that. We could fix it. You can throw money at it, on that proactive side, or, we work on that level of the annual physical with the OSP side, and we can certainly schedule in if we want deeper dives. We could do section by section. So it's not a big upfront kind of analysis, right? So we say, hey, South Island, we'll jump into more splice cases. We'll sample them this year just to get an idea if we're seeing wind damage or other damage that wasn't perceived, in the physical ride out, right? So I think there's a lot of options there. It's the full audit, and I've built a couple of networks over in Vermont the last couple of years, and that level is your network is so young that it should be really good in many senses. So the general physicals is like what we'll do with our networks that are 4 or 5, 6 years old right now over in Vermont that we built. We ride them out and we'll sample a little bit, but it's usually just that from the ground what we can see, unless Will tells me something else is wrong with the optics on the fiber. But I don't know if that helps, but to kind of differentiate.
Yeah, just so you're aware, I don't know if we're normal in terms of storm levels, but we get microbursts and that sort of thing out here. So that can cause just a lot of disruption to things.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would produce a normal wear and tear that you're used to, or an accentuated wear and tear.
Well, and we could talk later, because I'm building a project on Lake Champlain on the islands in Alberta, Vermont, and there's definitely some proactive kind of like wind dampening components that with high wind we see out there that we don't see like in our other rural builds that are more mountainous. That's just due to, you guys probably have the same. You probably get a lot more wind here than you do a little further in on the mainland. So, but we can talk about that later. That's
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey Barry, this is
Yeah.
Tevis. I want to just take a moment to say, I think, and reiterate what Chris had said earlier is, we dropped the ball obviously in not being able to give progress updates and communicate when, Andy left the company. That's something obviously we can improve on going forward. And as a part of, I believe, not to, completely jump out of the audit, but I think is going to be a recurring theme here, is to number 2, establishing probably at least on a monthly cadence, the way we have with some of our other networks, a meeting amongst our 2 groups. That way we can have consistent communication. You have an opportunity to bring up any of these concerns or questions that you might have, whether it's regarding any of the work that's being done on the network or other items collectively. So I just wanted to acknowledge that obviously we dropped that ball, we can improve that communication, and there's a way in which we can set some of those expectations around how we meet going forward.
Okay.
If I could, I'm sorry, and this is probably the only time you'll hear from me. I'm not here to talk about the technical stuff. This is Kathy, but I just wanted to tag on to what Tevis said, because I think it's really important. We rightfully so got into the list, and your agenda is very thorough, and we want to address all of those. And my gut is always to let people talk first and tell us what you need. But we, to Tevis's point, own where the ball was dropped, but also we're committed, and we're a new team, and we're coming at this in a new way. And so we are committed to this support in however you need it. And we own the fact that it wasn't as you anticipated. We have new managers, we have new people, we have new ways of going about things. That's what we're really here to communicate to you. We want you to feel that. I'm not dismissing your agenda, and everybody else is here to talk technical and things that I have no business speaking to. What I can speak to is the commitment to a really high level of service.
So I'm new to this board, relatively speaking, probably as one of the newest members, and I am not well versed in the year or so experience over this transition to new management. But what I see is that every time I come to a meeting, we expect someone from your company, and I think we've had attendance maybe once for the 3 quarterly meetings I've been to. There have been seats at the table left empty. So you clearly have some work to do there. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is people who are actually doing the work in the field. Every time we inquire, or I inquire, what's he doing? Oh, he's not with the company anymore. And we don't know who's doing the work or what work they're doing. So communications, you score pretty low right now.
And we are committed to change that.
The people you see here right now are the people that have been I've been at right now, Mac Mountain, GWI, Lightcraft, as a conglomerate here, for almost 17 years. Will has 24 years, and Bohar is on his 5th year here. We're not going anywhere. We are absolutely available to you. Call us if you're not getting what you need. That is my plea, right? Is that, we are absolutely available. Tevis has provided, I think, or he will, we will provide a great escalation list so that you make sure that you get what you need. At the end of the day, we're talking about OSP updates, things like that. Bohar would be your person. Anything that's, you can reach out to me and I'll just, suck him in and we'll get you your answer, right? So, if you're not getting an answer from him, call me. If you're not getting an answer from Will as far as any of the electronics and stuff, call me. If you want to talk, call me. Right. We are absolutely here to meet your needs.
Okay. I appreciate what you're saying, and I hear what you're saying, but there's also a credibility thing, because in the past and currently we request stuff and it's a void. So you got to restore that, or else there's going to be a problem in terms of the relationship.
Agreed.
Just so you know.
And we're committed to fixing that rift, right? What I can say is that every request you've had, we've had extensive conversations internally, and again, we're not closing the loop. So that's what we've identified here. And after you reached out to us here, we're taking this as a call to arms, and we will change, and you will see that. And we're aware that we have to re-earn that trust.
Okay. As far as the actual audit/inspections, whatever you want to call them, if we had a really good baseline, I'm pretty sure the committee would be favorable to not having to have them every year, as long as we had a good change control system, so we know what happened, so we know it's been dealt with. If it gets out, so we don't know where the baselines are anymore, then it's more important for us to have a more rigorous review of the system, so we know it stays in place.
Now, what do you envision the baseline? So like if I said, okay, you know what, money's not an object. What do you want to see for like the network, to be a good baseline?
I can't really answer that because fiber's not my background. If it was in other areas, I could answer that. But we need to have a comfort level that what we have out there is in good shape and gonna last its lifetime without, all of a sudden panic somewhere because something's major has gone wrong. So we'd rather see this be an evolutionary process rather than have to be a reactive revolutionary thing.
I would say one thing too, just to pick a particular example, there's a spares issue for radios. And there was a plan to address it. And we're sort of stopped halfway through that plan and we don't have any idea what happens next.
Sure.
We know what should happen, but we don't know if that's gonna happen or not, or when. I think that in terms of equipment in the network, the electronic or electro-optics over the network, we need to have a sort of clear view of when it's going to be likely that we'll need to have funds for replacement. Which is, maybe a 20-year horizon or a 15-year horizon, but it's something that you can't plan for overnight.
That's true. Very true.
And then if we're talking about 40 years of fiber, like in 40 years, we're considering going underground, for example, or we considering a different kind of fiber, and can we have a staged process planned over that period of time to do it piecemeal rather than everything at once?
Sure. Yeah. So just on the surface, right? Because this could be a really, really good long conversation we have. But on the surface, we are fiber experts, right? That is what we do. Fiber itself, I mean, if you want to go underground, if you even have an inkling you want to do that, we'll put together a Tiger team and we can do some exploration as far as costing and what that looks like. And then you ultimately going to make that cost benefit analysis, right? I mean, it's, here's the numbers. If you want to, I mean, it may be worth it to you, right? If you see a lot of damage. But I think at the end of the day, like we would, as a part of what we do as operators, is we want to be able to provide you good recommendations based off of our experience, right? And we operate many of these networks, including our own. We have a pretty good baseline of experience in New England, right? So I mean, similar weather systems. I mean, not the wind, sure, but and we do have evidently tornadoes in Vermont, and there's all. I mean, the weather everywhere is getting worse. But at the end of the day, we are in a position to provide you with those recommendations. And if we're meeting at this regular cadence that we're going to be proposing, then this should be a good, clear, transparent discussion, right? So just to putting a little bit of this to rest, the GPON ONT system that you're running right now still has plenty of life left in it, right? Now, will it in 10 years? Probably not, right? So to your point, I mean, what is the plan? What is the transition plan? The way that the network is built is that we can transition literally one at a time if we had to, or you want to, right? Or you can do a rip and replace if you want to, right? Those have very different cost structures, and rip and replace is obviously more impactful to customers. So we internally at the GWI level, we traditionally do a little bit of both, right? This is an attrition-based upgrade plan path, right? I mean, if you want to offer a higher service, it's multi-gig, then guess what? You definitely need to upgrade from GPON to XGS-PON. If you have no intention of doing that, because that's where you're still the ISP, right? So, what are your plans for speed and what services you want to offer? Share those with us, and we will. I guarantee you, we'll find the best solution for you that meets your budget. So, if you want to know the costing, we've done a lot of different scenarios with a lot of different vendors. And again, we can share that, right? I mean, like you had mentioned in your agenda, is there better options in Calix? I mean, we recently looked at Adtran, Nokia. We looked at Motorola years ago, but honestly, from a price stance, Calix is still the best, by like 3.5%. So they're all pretty similar. Now, if you said I don't like Calix, I want something else, that's a different story. Now, if you're talking about on the Wi-Fi side, Will's going to put together a recommendation to upgrade the wireless components, right? So I agree that, like people want the latest and greatest when it comes to the Wi-Fi interface, right? I mean, so the gateway side, the stuff that people are interacting with, That's really the only thing that people are going to see every day and experience every day, and whether or not they have good performance or not, right? We still believe, that the 844s that are deployed, I mean, they're adequate, but is it Wi-Fi 7? No. I mean, do people want Wi-Fi 7? You tell us, right? I mean, as the ISP, are you getting requests for multi-gig services for higher capacity? If you are, I mean, share that with us immediately, because we have stuff on deck, and we're rolling out Wi-Fi 7 routers for other properties right now. We're doing XGS-PON for other networks right now, including ourselves, right? So we can do a staged approach. We can do whatever fits your budget or your desire.
And we're happy to check out any level of network upgrade, et cetera, reserve that you guys are maintaining, and just align that with some longer term annual plan, regarding contributions set aside just to ensure like annual maintenance coverage, along with that broader kind of upgrade goals as things change over 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years. We're happy to work with you on those fronts as well.
Okay, well, thank you for the input. Proof is in the pudding now.
Well, I would argue, honestly, Barry, that the proof is in the pudding, and you've had a solid network that's been running for many years now with very little problems, and we're continuing to monitor that.
I'd agree with you on the functional side, but on the operational side, we need these improvements.
Understood.
So the other thing, as far as the audit or inspection, whatever you want to call it, I was trying to think of a way we could systematize it. And I have in the notes here, September 1st would be a reasonable thing to have all the information, because we have a budget cycle that we have to conform to. But I thought about it some more, and other people can give their input. It'd be better perhaps if it was January 1st, because that way we'd have the numbers in, because we have to do the budgets in February. So if we had it in January, we have the budget, and then we're ready for the next year. And then, things from the like in this year could have been done in the summer when it's easier. Then we get the budget, so January would be a better date than September. So it's just.
Okay, so January 1st target, okay.
Trudging through that.
Now, do you have a target, is there a hard cap for budget you're looking for everything to be perfect? Are we talking like just the most, the stuff that's at risk? I mean, again, we can always find something, right? Always. Resagging, right? I mean, like anything. I mean, I would not recommend at that level. I'd recommend getting the stuff that is at risk of causing outages or performance degradation, right?
Well, basically, we want to keep the customers happy. So whatever is needed to maintain that level of service.
Okay.
That's important.
That helps level set it for us. Okay.
And you can chip in for anybody can chip
I'm
in.
stuck on the radio spares. That's a very.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to blow past that. Yeah. So wait, Will, do you want to talk a little bit about the status of the radios?
Yeah, sure. Right now, Frank has the Cambium radios at his house. He's doing some testing with them.
Right.
He did, I think, emailed you last night, Barry, with a status update on that. He does have a ticket open with Cambium because he's having some issues getting them to stay locked on. These require GPS lock on in order for them to work. So if one of them unlocks or loses signal, even though you showed me yesterday that the radio sees these satellites, for some reason it's not staying locked on. So that we don't. I understand the need to get these out and get them going, but we don't want to deploy a product that isn't going to meet the expectations of the customer. In this case, you guys, if we deploy it out to mine it or seal, especially with the holiday coming up, people are going to be out there. If this thing for some reason doesn't work or goes down for some reason, and that's new to us, so we're still trying to learn it and make sure it's working right for you guys. We want to make sure we put the product out that actually works before we just toss something out there.
I appreciate that, but we did have the stuff back in April, so.
Yeah,
we hope to have it done in May.
Understood. But...
And I'm not blaming Frank, just so you know.
Yeah, so I mean, a little bit about the spares for that. Like when we did check, and we have spares for everything except for the one link, right? So there's one link that we go.
700 acre link.
Yeah, 700 acre link.
Right.
So we have radio spares for the other links, but because it's licensed spectrum, they're specific to each link, right? Because they're hard coded. So sourcing that extra radio is possible, but right now it's an aftermarket kind of thing, trying to find, or gray market, I should say, some sort of used component or something along those lines. Now, if your directive is that you need a spare right now, we'll focus our efforts on getting that spare. But if you want to focus on rolling out at least one link, then you at least have that kind of spare capability, right? Because then you have at least, so if a radio link were to fail that's on there, you can actually, just kind of reuse some of the old stuff, and you still would be okay. So that's the recommendation. But taking your guidance into account, and what would you like to see?
Well, I just have to put my comment, what we'd like to see is have the testing done back in April when we were hoping to. So then we'd have all the spares here now, so it didn't matter. So now we're kind of at a juncture where.
No, Barry, help me understand that though, because I thought that we received that from you like the beginning of June, right?
No, the equipment's all been here since April.
And Frank didn't receive it until June.
There was he got the switches? No, he's had the stuff since.
No, he was on vacation. He didn't receive, because he said you shipped it and for some reason it got returned back to you.
Yeah.
And then you shipped it again the first week of June, and then he got it on the 5th. He was unfortunately on vacation that week, so he didn't start working on it until the 8th.
Okay. But the stuff, because the logistics of the shipping was not correct, but the stuff was here and he was aware of it. And once again, I'm not faulting him. He's been very good in responding, cooperating. But the stuff was here at the end of April. So it's been since then to get it moving. So it's just a delay.
Okay.
And now it's getting into a problem time of year for us because of things. It's an active season, and then if 700 goes down, yikes. So it just, once again, it doesn't seem like it was handled properly. Just my opinion. So.
Okay.
So if we're on to number 3 now, which is spares and rapid response, and I didn't want to take away from you.
I mean, I think you gotta walk before you run. And so, we gotta worry about things that are 10 or 20 years out, but we got one link that's unprotected at the moment.
So would you, just to kind of close the loop, so would you prefer we continue down the path right with the wireless or seeking a spare immediately? Like, how would you prioritize those? Or should we back burner?
I'm not close enough to the details to suggest one or the other. I just think that it seems maybe it's again back to communications as opposed to other things. But we're at our last meeting, which was a few weeks ago, we didn't have any plan for that, and nobody showed up from your company.
Yeah, and it seems like since you guys are supposed to provide the lead, it would have been good to say, hey, you don't have this back last year or whatever. You don't have a spare for 700. What do you want to do about it? But nobody says anything, so we kind of take that initiative on our own, which isn't how it should be.
Were you provided any documentation like when Roger handed over the helm, or is it just all like word of mouth? And it was like some of the stuff, was kind of talked about, previously, like sparing for these things. I mean, it's been a well-known thing. So as an operator, right, like we work with the customer, and the customer kind of changes. We just want to level set. Like we're operating under certain methodology and assumption, and the assumption there was that was an acceptable risk by Roger previously, right? Because when we talked about that before, that was never purchased, right? That was just on a we'll deal with that during network upgrades or during the next upgrade, right? So I hear you loud and clear. We need to do a better job of communicating this. We will do a better job of communicating this. The resetting of these expectations and the resetting of kind of what our assumptions are, but what we need to do in a regular cadence, right? So we can say, okay, now we understand. I mean, so this way you can understand too, like why we're operating this a certain way, and maybe that's not right anymore. Maybe that assumption has changed. So I look forward to working with you and fleshing out those assumptions, because I mean, what I've taken away from this is that we've got to erase those all and start over.
Okay. So we're on number 3 of the spares stuff. And we've identified some areas that we need to address, and we're glad to work collaboratively to do that. Once again, you guys, I think, should be providing the lead for this rather than us pushing you into getting it done. And so in terms of, we will be getting, just so you guys know, I'm not sure you want to put all your equipment in. We're going to be getting hopefully a container here shortly that we can store stuff in and have a common location. Because right now it's scattered on the island, which makes it difficult for anybody. So that should facilitate that.
Okay, can you elaborate a little bit when you say scattered? So we just were in the POP and looking at the inventory there. There is some equipment that we have to locate still. Is there another location that some electronics would be then?
There's some upstairs, is that correct, Paige?
Which electronics you're talking about?
There's there's a line card that's not in there, and then there's some optics that I'm seeing.
Everything I'm aware of should be in the POP.
Okay.
Okay, so that readdresses the point that we need a spares inventory.
Exactly, yeah.
And where it is and how old it is and does it work and is it
Mhm.
configured and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and to put your heart at ease a little bit on that too, the spare, you have hot swappable spares that are in the POP, right? And those are in the system, so we can see like at least one line card, right? So we know that the line card is up and running, we keep it up to date, right? So you have a full chassis that's there, that's ready to go, to be replaced, right? You have redundancy on the transport gear, right? So in the sense that you have redundant line cards, and you have redundant passive DWDM cards that are in the transport side. So what I mean by that is you can literally pull out one of those cards and everything still runs. As a matter of fact, you pull out both those cards because they're passive and they'll still continue to run, which is pretty cool. And you have basically like two individual switches that are in there. Even if all of that stuff were to somehow melt down or fail, we have spares because we run the same gear, right? So as a part of the disaster plan that Will's putting together, written for you all, is that we will obviously use that to restore services. Even if we didn't have that as a plan Z, we could actually bypass the gear that's there and do direct interconnections with some of the gear. Would be protected, of course, but it would be a quick way to restore services. This is kind of like the world we live in, right? We engineer solutions to problems with whatever we have available, right? So we have lots of plans for disaster that are not formalized that we will formalize and give to you, so that you hopefully will have some confidence that in the event of a tragedy, we can address you. Now, of course, if that POP washes out to sea, that's a different type of, right? And we can only plan on so many tragedies at once. But even in that case, right? I would say that we could bring in some spare equipment from England, and we could literally do a trailer and still run services. So there's lots of scenarios that we can run through with you and kind of help you get that comfort level. Because when it comes to spares, we actually have, I think, what we need, correct me if I'm wrong, for as far as the OLTs and the optics, we have spares. So I'd rather focus you on the next transition to like XGS-PON and investing in that instead of buying even more spares for something that you have not even, like, we still have spare line cards been in there since its network's inception, right? So do you need 2 spare line cards? I wouldn't recommend it, but if that's what you need for comfort level, happy to buy one.
I'm not saying that we need a comfort level, we need to know what's there. We have no idea
Understood.
what's going on.
Yeah.
So we know that we have and also a good plan. So we know if this happens, this is what's response is gonna be. So we can make sure everything stays up to the maximum time it can stay up.
Absolutely. And the inventory piece, unfortunately, it's tracked right now on an internal spreadsheet. There's a separate tab on that, so we can't share that spreadsheet with you. But Will had committed to either export. I mean, we can do it whatever. I mean, do you want quarterly inventory reports? Do you want?
It'd be nice to be able to just see it real time.
We can do that too, right? So we can basically move it to a separate shared folder and just give you access to that inventory sheet. We can do that too. Okay, no problem.
That'd be the easiest way.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments on the spares and response? Anybody? No? Okay, so on to number 4. This is the data integrity in Vetro. Paige can probably address that better, but he's had some occasions where it's the fiber numbering or whatever has not been correct. And that makes it difficult to try to figure out what's going on. So we need to validate the integrity of the data.
Yeah, so I can talk on this, right? Because Vetro Fiber Map is near and dear to me, and Bora can definitely step in as appropriate. The data that went in there was loaded from the original construction as-built, right? So just, I want to frame this, right? So when Waveguide finished the network design and construction, they provided us all the as-built information. We loaded all that stuff directly into Vetro Fiber Map, right? That's a snapshot in time, right? But that's the way it existed. As we do changes, additions, if there's damage, things like that, we absolutely update Vetro to reflect that, right? We have to be made aware of those changes, or obviously we can't update Vetro, right? So the data integrity of Vetro is absolute, right? It is our authoritative location, right, for storing this data. If Paige or any contractors running into this, that happens, right? Like, I mean, that happens with brand new networks. It happens with old networks. Maybe somebody transposed fiber, maybe during testing. Who knows, right? There's lots of things. We updated at that time. I would not classify your data at all as lacking integrity or being problematic. Now, if we're talking that there's a more substantial problem than that, then I'll work directly with contractors and figure out, Because maybe we messed up on a splice case, maybe another splice case was added, maybe there was fiber was rolled over to a different tube, maybe there was something major like that we missed, right? But that is our job as an operator to make sure that that stays up to date, right? And specifically Bohar and the fiber engineering team are the ones that would do those updates. But we can only update what we have access to, right? And we've been notified of.
Is the process set up so you can control, so you know what's being done, so you have good change?
So we're going to refine that, right? Like immediately, where right now the assumption is any contractor that's dispatched at all for any type of repairs or anything, the expectation is that they would get a scope of work from us. So we would, it's just a sum, right? From Vectra Fiber Map, we would generate whatever splice diagram we need that's pertinent for the work, right? So whether or not you have touch one or multiple splice cases, you get all the information you need. You go and you do it. Now, if you run into a problem, you tell us, well, no, this is what it should be. This is your actual fiber that you had to use. This wasn't used. We'd receive that back, and then a member of Joshua's team would obviously transpose that back into the Vectra Fiber Map. That's how we deal with all of our networks. That's how we maintain the Vectra Fiber Map system. Again, we're still dealing with people, so will this be 100% accurate? I guarantee you it is not 100% accurate. But is it usable and workable and typical? Yes, absolutely. I mean, I would still, the very first place I look for any fiber assignments is Vectra Fiber Map, right? And we start there, and if there's any discrepancies, we fix it.
Okay. We had a conversation once before about access to it, so Paige could see it to make it easier for him rather than, is it printouts, I guess you send them?
Well, let's be clear, right? So Paige is a contractor working for us, right? We do not give contractors access to our Vectra instance. We give contractors access to the splices. So we give them splice information, or in limited cases, we do have contractors that do construction that they would actually have their own instance, and we give them access to our data so they can do as-built directly in there and stuff. But we would not normally have our contractors in our fiber management system. So for our conversation before, it's your data, right? So if you want to have a view account for that, for the IMB, you're welcome to it, right? We'll set you up. I think we gave you a quote last year for that. So that's still valid. We can set that up, and then you can actually view the data. And if you are sharing it with a contractor, that is also within your right, and the contract has the ability for you to do self-remediation. Just we need to know, right? Or else we can't update Vectra, right? So that's the key there. Now I'd ask that you work all things through us. This way we can manage the construction.
There can only be one Bible. I understand that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
It has to be kept holy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well put.
Okay. Equipment upgrades we've started to touch on. If you want to just kind of go through those, we need to get a plan for where we're going. That's not necessarily in our expertise to project that. We have sense of based on what Will gave me a while ago, you only have the low traffic levels going through these two gig pipes. It was like 1.2 or 1.5, I think was a max.
Yeah, max out like 1.6 the other day, but it's been really almost, I'm not gonna say the same because you have advertisements over the years, but over the 10 years we've monitored the network. I mean, obviously in the wintertime it's lower. It's usually around 800 to a gig, and then in the summertime it'll peak up to 1.6, 1.7.
Even during the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Oh, it's been that.
You can only watch so many TVs, right?
You can only watch so many TVs.
So just in terms of where we need to go, this would have to be fleshed out by the committee, but generally I'd say the gig is going to be more than enough for anybody out here for a long, long time.
I would agree.
Going up to higher speeds is nice, but it's not functional for us, not practical or useful.
Yeah, if we start to see trends, that start pushing out, I mean, whatever the next big thing is, we don't know about, right? We would also see that usage increase on our network too, and as well as yours. And at that point, it may make sense, right? Because we also, I mean, there's other key areas that we also monitor. So those 10 gig links, right, of which you have 2 10 gig links, either one can fail and you're still only at 20%, right? So we don't, we have plenty of overhead or capability there, right? But more importantly, on the GPON, I hate using this word because it feels like cable, but the node side, right? So at the splitter level, where you have like up to 32 individual customers that are sharing that bandwidth, that bandwidth for the OLT is kind of the critical piece that we want to make sure that that never gets exceeded, right? Because you have basically a 2 gig down by 1.25 gig up that's available to those 32 customers, right? And I say, wait a second, there's not enough bandwidth for everybody, right? It's obviously oversubscription, so like we monitor that. And if that were to get higher, right, what we would do is we do like node splits. We would actually take the kind of the high users and move them into a different splitter, right? And then now they can kind of consume up to whatever their rate would be. It's a process that we don't have to exercise often, but it does happen, right? With XGS-PON and with some of the kind of the future technology, you're moving to a 10 gig segment for that same group of customers, right? So instead of this 2 by 1.25 gig, you have 10 by 10. So you can kind of visualize that. I mean, if you start to see capacity issues there at the OLT level, and we've done the splitting we can, that would be the next trigger point where you have to do an XGS-PON upgrade. You're not there yet, right? Like, I mean, I don't see that for this year, or I mean, again, if the trend continues even next year, does that mean that you shouldn't prepare for XGS-PON? XGS-PON is cheaper now than GPON. So, I mean, if you have to buy new ONTs and stuff, it probably makes sense for us to buy, or at least budget so you can buy, like a line card, a spare line card, some XGS ONTs, and certainly, obviously, as part of Will's review with you, whatever type of gateway you want to buy, right? I mean, the Wi-Fi 7 gateways are comparably priced to what you were buying. Now, the stuff you're buying now, if we buy the same stuff, is cheap, right? Because it's gray market, and I mean it's pretty darn affordable. So that's really a budget decision, a business decision that you all need to make, right?
Okay, but we need a formal plan and a rollout plan. We can provide you with what we anticipate the needs will be, and then just monitor those as time goes on.
So you say plan, you mean a recommendation?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me, when you were talking about the peak bandwidth usage in winter and summer or whatever, how is that measured? I assume that's peak over some period of some time interval. What does that actually mean?
S&P phone sales.
Yeah, those are
Yes. It looks like Will's type. So we have a S&P monitoring engine, and that's polling repeatedly every single OLT, all the critical interfaces. So that's right now set to a 5-minute average. So during that 5-minute average, that's what you're seeing. But it's so there are averages for 5 minutes that are then averaged, or like a line is drawn on it. So you can see the bandwidth throughout the day, and you see obviously like peaks and stuff. In general, when we do that, as soon as we hit like 60% of capacity, we in general kick off a project to upgrade. Because by the time you get it rolled out, you're at close to like 80%. And then, anything above that, honestly, people start to, I don't want to say like, they'll notice like if they're really savvy, right? I mean, you go to a website, maybe it took, 3 milliseconds instead of 1 millisecond for it to load, things like that, where like if it's left unchecked for a long period of time, people will start to complain. So we definitely don't want to ever hit that. But right now, I mean, 60% is kind of the industry norm for kicking off those upgrades.
Thank you. The 5-minute thing was the what I was asking. It was a 5-minute peak average. It'd be useful. I would love to see some reporting on this, and it doesn't need to be frequent, but just long-term trends, right? What are like the seasonal part, how has it been over the last 3 years, that sort of thing, so we can get out in front of any if we start, like you said, getting close to bumping up against a limit.
Yeah, so that's actually one of the, I think the subsequent points that are in here is, so the reporting of that, we have actually always done, and we do is we do a PDF output that we're saving in a folder that was accessible to the IMB from Salesforce, right? So you had access to from the network's inception until we got off of Salesforce, right? So now that we're onto the Gaia platform, Will and team are going to do this manually, and we're going to put it into that same shared folder, right? So you'll actually be able to see these PDFs. But that's done quarterly. So we have a trigger on our side, where we're doing quarterly reports. So you'll literally see the last 3 months of bandwidth usage, and that gives you the best view. I mean, because yearly view kind of waters it down as an average, right? And you want to have as precise as of a view as you can get.
And we do have a big seasonality here, obviously. So
yeah.
Back to the equipment upgrades. Just a quick question. Did I hear that correctly, that we need something from Barry and team before we actually present them with the proposal? They're going to get us something. I just want to put it in a timeline of what we need to get and when, so that we can meet our deadline of providing the proposal back. I want to start out clean with like real deadlines, real commitments to things so that everybody is set up for success.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm hearing very right, gig is fine, so we don't have to do an immediate XGS monitoring, right? There's interest in new Wi-Fi gateways or no?
Well, it depends on the life cycle of the current equipment, you know, as long as we can still get it.
Wi-Fi is yearly, right? So I mean, like,
Yeah.
you could make an argument that every year you should be deploying the newest thing.
I guess I'm a little confused because I don't know the equipment that well, but you know, in my house, I have Eero units spread all around.
So you're not using Wi-Fi. You're not using the IP
Exactly,
Wi-Fi. Yeah. So you wouldn't be touched at all.
Exactly, and I think if you go there and offer it as an option, that maybe is an extra service we could consider.
That's right. That's right.
Rather than upgrading equipment for everybody when, you know, 10% of the people might actually.
Yeah, agreed. Yes, so the equipment that you're using right now, right, there's two different flavors of ONT that are out there. So ONT is the optical, conversion device. So one of them is an integrated device that has the Wi-Fi built into it, and the other one is a standalone ONT. Yeah. My preference with every network is always standalone ONT because the Wi-Fi component is what people actually upgrade or don't use, right? So why tie up your money with that, when it could go away, right? So the units that we're deploying with the combo units right now, we would, in essence, have to put them into bridge mode, basically disabling their wireless component and then connecting a new gateway if that's a service you want to offer. I mean, I would highly recommend that, right? I mean, we internally offer the first wireless gateway on the GBY properties. The first wireless gateway is included for no cost, but any subsequent like mesh units and stuff, we do charge a monthly fee for that. So you can replicate that type of model, or you can do your own model. I mean, I'll let you drive that. You just need to tell us, how many of those do you want to buy? How many of those do you want to roll out?
I think one issue here is monthly fees, a bad idea. Because you've got a very diverse, or really two populations, if you want to think about it. And in order to keep the service going, you pretty much need to stay with everything as annual or a sale of equipment rather than a rent of equipment.
Right. So you could do a one-time NRC, like a charge for it, right? And then recover 50%, 100%, whatever you decide to recover for that cost. Yeah, you can definitely do that. Happy to provide those numbers for you, and we can do recommended gear. Now, again, we're talking about supporting this. Anybody that takes that, for us to be able to support this in an effective way, it's got to be on the Calix ecosystem, right? Because we have all of our support team has visibility into the customer's network at that point, and we can help them troubleshoot weak signals, problems with their wireless network, all of that stuff, right? If you said, Chris, I still don't care, we want to deploy Eero. Our answer is sure, that's fine. It changes the dynamics, right? Like, I cannot offer you a wireless support option at the same level, right? I mean, that's okay. We still would say, did you reboot your gear? You may have to call Eero, right? Unfortunately, that the model changes a bit, but that's you as the ISP should be telling us what you want, and we will make it happen. So to close Kathy's loop here, would you guys be able to provide us with an estimate of how many of these wireless units you'd want, if any?
We can probably do that, but I think we'd better to have a discussion with Will perhaps first, so we know the playing field we're on and how we can best navigate that playing field.
Okay, so the takeaway here is discussion about technology first. Right. Okay. Does that answer your question, Kathy?
Yeah, I just want to be sure. There's so much great conversation happening. I want to be sure we're capturing everything on both sides to-dos, and we can send a summary and make sure each side we're not missing anything. But as things pop up, I want to make sure we're like kind of understanding who's doing what in what order, and we have a date for it, so that there's no miscommunication in the end, that we're not fulfilling something and we think we're waiting for something, but Isleboro thinks they're waiting for something, and trying to avoid any sort of miscommunication that there's potential to have.
Agreed. Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces here, and And we'll do our best to summarize this with actual actionable dates.
Yeah.
Right, and takeaways from this. So that'll be shortly coming after we finish this meeting.
Okay. So number 6 is wireless. We've had a discussion already. I guess what I'm really looking for is a date when we can implement this stuff and test it to make sure it's good.
I'll try finding it 1 second.
All right, so, yeah, that goes. Frank is hoping to have the testing done by July 2nd.
Okay.
Nick said he is pending the ticket with Cambian. And then, we're gonna schedule, as long as everything works out, he gets it nailed down where it's in a working state. We'll be out here the week of the 13th. If that works for you guys.
Just interjection, just reminded, July 13th is not gonna happen. The homeowner will not let it happen.
Okay, we'll have to work around the dates then.
Yeah, so then that's where we'll take your guidance, right? So I mean, if it needs to be different dates, we'll obviously adjust that.
Maybe seal. We'd have to make it seal. It's a place with just one person, so
Yeah,
screw it
right.
up, it doesn't matter.
Probably more amicable to it.
Okay. Okay.
But I'll have, Frank reach out and make sure to keep you guys updated on his testing process.
Okay.
What the ticket comes up with.
Number 7 then is access to subscriber information reports, that sort of stuff. We've kind of briefed on that a little bit. And I presume a lot of this is going to be covered in Gaia once it's fully operational, whatever, I don't know. But we need to be able to monitor the health. You guys do it, but we'd like to get reports, or ideally, as we agree to in the contract revision, that we'd have access to this stuff directly. So that would be, to me, that's just my nature. Some of the people on the committee won't have any interest in looking at it.
Of course.
But I'm anal, so I like to look at things going on and know what's happening. So
Me too.
Our goal here.
About you.
well, I try to hide it.
So our goal here is to replicate the functionality that existed under Salesforce, as far as, because the Salesforce visibility you had was the ability to see in real time any open tickets that were on your network, right? So the status of the tickets, a general summary report of performance, right? So how quickly do we close tickets? How long was the average ticket open? Blah blah blah, right? As well as, so that functionality, Adam would be working on deploying very very soon, right? So we're completely in Gaia right now. We're just kind of working out the kinks on some of the automation backend stuff and getting these permissions all set up and getting these reports set up. The more important piece that is not in there yet, that we're currently also flushing out, like literally this week, is the called network events module or outage module, or whatever you want to call it. But anytime there's a network event, before we'd again record it in Salesforce, and you'd have a nice little dashboard, so you knew exactly what was out at any time, and you could question that, right, and be a good talking point. That is what we're trying to replicate in Gaia. And Adam, speak up if I'm misspeaking at all, but I think that's in progress, right?
Yeah, that's in progress, and the other reports actually exist. And for any additional reports that we need to build out, for the most part, we'll be able to do that without issue. I think one of the biggest issues here is the access itself, which, I'd set up access early May. I believe nobody's actually been able to log in yet. And so I'm happy to sit through with you all to make sure that the login actions take place and we actually go through the training again. We talked about training before. I didn't receive a response back, or maybe I did and I missed it. Apologies if I did, but happy to set up that training schedule and walk through Gaia as a whole and make sure that we're all on the same page, that you have the access that you need to your data.
I did send you a note when I was on vacation when you're in the first part of May. So when I got to set it up, the link that you had to go to one of the sites, I forget the name of it, it had timed out, so it was no longer active. And I know that's the same case here in the town office. So we need refreshed links or whatever it takes to get that functional again.
No problem.
The setup process.
Yep.
And just so you know, also, I don't use a PC or a Mac, so I'm using the Chrome software. I don't know if there's any issues with that. Just a heads up.
You'll need to download the Island.io browser. So we have Island.io browser is a Chromium based browser. So if you use Google Chrome, it'll feel very familiar to you. But this is an enterprise browser that helps data loss prevention. And so we leverage Island.io as a whole across the organization, and we provide that to our customer base as well.
Okay. Okay.
Now, Barry, would you be the only person being set up for that, or is there somebody else like an alternate?
This page is set up for it, and also in the town office, Tina,
Okay.
because she needs to track what's going
And
on.
now Paige under what capacity? Like as a town employee?
You guys can elaborate on that. I don't know the.
Oh, is Paige will be set up as a contractor, like, and hopefully, have we worked with you yet on that?
Yeah, it's in the middle. I have access and been using it, but I guess I'd bring a point up now. Some of what I'm seeing is before we had processes with GWI, and now what we have is a new tool, Gaia, but those processes haven't been changed over. So now we got a new tool, old process.
Trying to work it out, yeah.
Somehow we gotta get the stuff aligned.
That is true.
So what we need is the new processes so that we can then use the tool effectively. That's what's really hampering me right now in using it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and specific to you, like it's more that we have to set up the right jobs so you can have additional like survey jobs, and because that's how we're going to kind of force that workflow in there, right? So you're right. We have to iron that out, and we will.
Tina's got the same kind of thing when somebody wants a new account or wants a service moved, whatever. I mean, I'm sure it's the same problem. What's the new process? How's that handled inside of Gaia?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, so that's something we need to provide you that documentation, that training for sure.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I would suspect that some of that is, I don't know what effort you guys have done with that, but I would suspect some of that is some analysis of, okay, what processes were done inside of Salesforce.
Exactly.
And Old Team, and how is that gonna be moved over?
Yeah, as well as optimizing that process, right? So we're trying to not just kind of recreate problematic processes, right?
Agreed with that. Positive side, some of what I'm seeing with the Gaia too, I see that it's gonna have potential to operate more smoothly for us than the Salesforce.
If we can figure out the little intricacies.
Yeah, the intricacies, to me, the key is for us, we're struggling when we need to figure out who do we talk to get jobs done, to get things moving, so it's all in a transition. And right now, things are settling down. The personnel turnover seems to be slowing down, and so we're getting to where we know who we contact, but we're doing it kind of backdoor at times.
Right.
We want it through the tool.
Yeah, and it needs to be through the tool, right? Because that's the only way that we're all gonna get visibility on that.
I get that.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I'm more worried about getting it done.
Understood. That's the difference between, the doer, the person that's assigned the work, right? So, yeah, and when I'd say Paige is that, my phone, I will always answer your call, right? So I mean, until we iron this out, please, if you're running into problems, I mean, you've worked with Will and Frank plenty of times, right? I mean, those guys are all the time, yeah. So, yeah, we'll kind of iron out that piece, but the goal is that everything is done in Gaia. So, I mean, turn ups, turn downs, and the beauty here is that even if the town wants to turn down somebody for non-pay or for whatever reason, the automation process should just automatically kick in. Whereas before it was, a ticket would go to this guy and he would have to process it, and then we'd have some delay there, and if somebody wanted to turn back on, it's right? I mean, like, so somebody may end up having to wait hours to get service turned back on, when instead in the Gaia platform you just hit a button and it's just gonna work. So
okay, so there's other stuff. Go ahead.
Would it be helpful in terms of people who need training and access to things for both sides if we had some sort of checklist, and that way the town is comfortable that the people have been trained in the instances where there's specific training that needs to happen, and everybody can rest assured they've had the training that they need, and both sides can check it off their list and say everybody knows what they need to know. I don't know if that's helpful or adding too much paperwork. I'm not trying to add too many steps. I'm just trying to add, it was said earlier, we need to rebuild that trust and confidence. And so if there's, evidence that we're really working towards it and everybody's signing off on, yep, we know what we're doing, then nobody's operating under an assumption that somebody knows something they don't.
Yeah, Kathy, I love that idea. I would focus it, though, on the things that people are going to do on a repeated basis, because there's no sense doing training for something that you're going to do once every quarter. You'll just forget it.
No, agreed, Tom.
I think that's the key.
That people
what are the repetitive things that people want to do? because honestly, you know, you just mess it up or forget it or feel bad about yourself. Oh, they gave me the training, but so, you know, if it's a small amount, it's a small number of things. I don't think it's a giant checklist. I mean, that's more our job.
Yeah,
to-
yeah, just a suggestion so that the town feels comfortable in their knowledge and their support.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a bare minimum. We want to set up probably a couple of training sessions. Obviously, you know, one focused on contractors and, you know, the workflow to process jobs, and then one on IMB management of the overall system, you know, like reporting SLAs, utilization, you know, that sort of thing. So I see those as kind of two distinctly different types of training sessions, different personnel, but both needed.
Sounds like the third one might be a sort of administrative for the town office.
Right. Sure, yeah, we can add that too. Yeah, that's true.
You can have that too, but I agree 100%. That's the third one, but my feel would be, it might be better to have an original meeting with all parties sitting there so that we all hear what's going on, so we know the ball's not dropping as.
Yeah, I'll leave that up to you all. I mean, you know, it's how you want to handle it. I mean, we can do one giant meeting, we can do individuals. I mean, I think that people learn better, like you can have the same people attend the different meetings and then they have a breather between them.
You're talking learning, I'm talking more the upfront analysis and the needs assessment.
I don't follow.
Part of what processes are we gonna make sure? Kathy's talking about making a checklist. To me, I don't wanna see a checklist. The only checklist I would really halfway digest wanting to see is a checklist that says, here's the processes that we need. Okay, that's what we're getting trained on, fine. Checklist on that is fine, but I wanna know those processes are covered.
Right, so what you're talking about is standard operating procedures, right? So
Okay.
SOPs themselves, you know, like that's what I'm committing to working with you. And we have to develop those around the Gaia workflow, right? So that's.
Either me and administration.
No, so administration, right? Like, so GWI.
Administration, Tina in the front office.
Right, so processing the orders, right? Yeah, exactly. So that's a part of it. You're right. Yeah. Yeah, so the workflow from beginning to end.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's, so the training piece, I think that Kathy's checklist that you talked about is more that a checklist so we don't lose sight of the training that we want to provide, right? So just, you know, what training sessions do we want to set up, which ones, and once everybody's kind of been exposed to that, just, hey, look, yeah, I did receive that. I mean, I need another follow-up or not. Maybe there's multiple ones. I mean, I don't know you guys, but I don't learn through one training session ever, right? I mean, it takes me, you know, I mean, I'll go to the first one, I'll kind of get exposed to it. I got to go play with it, and then I'm going to have more questions, right? So we probably want to do a couple of these.
Well, and along those lines, to me, exactly along those lines, we also need, like that escalation list, we need a contact, so we're not gonna anticipate everything, so all of a sudden we've got a job come up, something's happening, how do we handle a guy? We wanna talk to somebody, how do we do this?
Agreed.
So just basically on the job training, I guess you can call it, on the spot, get it done, and now I know what we gotta do, let's move on.
Yeah, and that's honestly dependent on what needs to be done, right? So if it's an ordering process thing, if it's provisioning, right? Like, I mean, there's different team members, but in either way, yeah, I mean, we can set it up because we do have a distribution list that we can actually reach out to initially. And again, that's where the escalation list is gonna come in, because if you need something immediately, sending an email to a group of people is not gonna give you an immediate answer, right? So who do you call? I mean, again, until you actually have a clear list, you know, the people that are involved here will all pick up the phone and be able to put you in the right location. For sure.
Okay, and item E on that list is we need one master subscriber list wherever it lives. Because if the town's maintaining one and you're maintaining one, I can see problems. So however that works, that doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, source of truth will be Gaia moving forward, because we won't maintain both memberships with it, subscriber base within a spreadsheet as well as Gaia. That being said, we're happy to work with you in a spreadsheet if that's how you're tracking things and making sure that both systems align.
I think that your opportunity there, right, is that, like, instead of having that spreadsheet, if we add whatever attributes that you were tracking separately, like I know there was like, you know, lot numbers, you know, whatever tax IDs, whatever you need, like per customer, we can add those attributes to the Gaia feed, right?
Already added.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So at that point, you know, you should be able to just use Gaia and not use your master list anymore, and as long as everybody has access to it.
Yeah. As long as it's consolidated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The one thing obviously is the whether or not subscribers have paid for fiber, because that, you know, we had talked before about us taking over that operation. as the town maintains that moving forward, that's 100% on you to identify that and track that however you see fit.
I would assume that's gonna be in Gaia, right?
Not the
Well,
money
no,
collection
it's
piece.
not in your payment, right? Because you said you guys are billing directly.
No, but there's gonna be a spot in that says payment has been received.
Right, but you have to manually toggle it. That was the point, right?
Correct.
So, yeah. So as long as your processes are capturing that point and you're doing that,
So they'll be able to print out a report or a listing of who's paid, who hasn't paid, how much, whatever.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. Anything else on the item number 7? Anybody? Okay, last item will probably be brief, but it's just proactive plans for if there's a hurricane comes up the coast or whatever.
Yeah.
We gotta have that in place so we don't sit here, because we're removed from the mainland. All the contractors are gonna be sucked up by everybody else. We
Yeah.
just sit here twiddling our thumbs, and we don't wanna do that.
Just talk when the ferry ride over. I was talking to there was a CMP truck, so I actually knocked on his window and had a conversation with how they get to you guys in outages, because I was kind of curious too, right? You are a ferry right away, and depending on the seas of the ferry can really inhibit getting help. But they apparently they station a truck here, right? And then they send crews if they have to, and if the equipment can't get on, but they'll at least be able to get technicians over for the truck and materials.
A little known fact is if you classify it as an emergency, then you get first dibs on the ferry. That's what CMP gets.
Oh, okay, that's good to know then.
Yeah.
And I assume as a utility, we would be able to get equipment over in that same protocol. We can check with them, but
It needs to be checked, but I believe so.
that.
Yeah.
because my networks in Vermont, typically they're classified as utilities, the fiber network, so they can follow the same kind of protocols that the electric company can for. Okay, well, yeah, that's in the works. I was kind of curious and talked to him for a few minutes on that and figured that. So.
Okay. Anything else?
I have one very general question, sort of moving to a little higher level, just getting to know McMountain and kind of the how we fit into the McMountain business model, I'll call. Are we unique, or do you have other networks that you're maintaining in the same way? And how does this fit within your target for what you want to do?
I can jump in on this one, Chris. I mean, we manage several networks across New England, in Vermont, in New Hampshire, and in Maine, and so it fits beautifully into our business model. We both own networks and operate them. I tend to, one of my tasks is to manage the relationships amongst those managed networks, and many of them are municipally owned as well. That's the most common model that we have. We have one privately owned, and the rest are municipally owned. Vermont has a pretty complex law around allowing towns to come together to build larger networks that are more economically viable. And so you're dealing with a board in one case of 30 members, but it's pretty much the same process. So we're very comfortable, know what's going on, and it's an important part of our business model.
Yeah, to kind of elucidate a little bit on that, if my math is right, you're one of 6 networks that we operate. Okay. Right, and they range from 100 units, to thousands of units, right? So I mean, it is right in the portfolio. It fits perfectly. I've been around long enough to see like the Osborne network be created initially, and so it holds a special place in my heart, and it's really from an operation side. The way that we have this thing set up, and the way that this network is ran, and even the way that you folks manage the customer expectations. This is ideal, and every network's a little unique, right? I mean, there'll be a little, like, you're gonna have different, like you're billing directly. Not everybody bills directly. Some people want us to bill. You may want to do wireless. Somebody else may not want to. So we're slowly building like these matrices of differences between networks, but they're not wildly different, right? I mean, they're just these little nuances, right?
Just because I didn't know the company, I
Yeah.
thought it was a relevant question.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, any other comments, questions, insults? No? Okay. I just
Why
have,
should make it rain?
I have one back on number 2. You guys were out here with Hawkeye, or at least Hawkeye was out here. We've not received any invoicing from them, and our budget closes on June 30th. So I don't really want to get trapped with a bill for our upcoming budget and something that happened this year. So just a heads up.
Neil, do you know if that was processed on our end?
I'd have to double check on that specifically, and we can do that today and report back to you guys. So yeah, not
I
off
thought
the
I
top.
saw that. That's why I'm a little bit surprised. But I mean, if not, then I imagine the finance team would get that to you ASAP.
Okay.
Barry, when's your fiscal, when's the budget close? Cause
June 30th.
June 30th, okay, cause they did about 80% of all the transfers that we found. So when we did the OSP write out, I'll send you this list and what's been done when projected to be done. But there's about 380 things we saw that could use correction, right? Or transfers, like new pole sets that are out of our control kind of thing, right? CMP will do that and we just transfer. But they did most of that work. We plan on getting all the transfers done by the first week of July, and then finish up all the technical work by the end of July. And then about 50% of the work was drops that need to be modified or fixed. And so that is planned for the month of August to do that work. But just as a heads up.
Yeah, but see, we were anticipating it would all be done before the end of this budget year, because now we're into a new budget year. We didn't plan for that. So it leaves us kind of in the waffle area, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, if I could get a list of what has been done, what's expected to be done, and timetables, that'd be good.
Yep. So to that end too, Barry, you'd asked a question about Alden One and updates, that were happening. So we did some digging into that, and it looks like you had requested with CMP that all emails and any type of notices for the town of Islesboro go to imbpolls@townofIslesboro.com.
Mhm.
So because of that, we don't get notified natively. So we had asked that you would either like do an auto response or an auto filter where you just zing those back to us.
Yep.
So that we can at least get notified. And because of that, we're trying to see if there's a workaround. I have Tom looking into this to see if we can be like a proxy for you in there. Other networks we operate, we're the one, we're set up to there, so you wouldn't see that email normally come to us, and then we would directly manage it within the Alden One system. So we're asking if they can make it so that we can actually update it and work directly out of Alden One on your behalf. We work out of Alden One for obviously other networks, including ours.
Yep, that's fine with me.
Okay. So you may see requests or something.
Yep.
So
I'll keep an eye out for it.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other comments, topics? Yeah. No?
I have some stuff, but you wanted everyone to wait till the end, so it's.
Well, we're pretty much at the end, so.
Some of that's long, you're along the way, so we'll go, what's the current, there's been stuff that's come up prior to the first audit, prior to the second audit, prior to that, it still seems to have fallen through the cracks. So I've asked the different meetings over and over again about when X or Y or Z is gonna be taken care of, and I keep getting, we're waiting for the audit to be done. And that's gonna be lumped into the audit, and then when that work gets done, it's gonna get done. But we're talking about some things more than 5 years now. We're talking about things that are a couple of years. And I've asked kind of over and over again about how that stuff's tracked. And the best it seems to me is that it gets marked off or gets lost in an email and is in a system that gets checked off. It says like, oh, we still have to put wind dampeners up at Sprague's Beach when we do the pole transfer, but we're gonna wait till we do the pole transfer and relash. And then the pole transfer and relash happens, and 6 months goes by and there's no wind dampeners. Or a transfer gets done and it has a ram's head and the down guide doesn't get set. Or different stuff along that line. It just seems like every time I ask, it's like, oh, well, it will be. It will be. So I guess my question is, how's that being tracked and how is it going on this long?
So how is what being tracked? Like, so are you aware? I mean, I'm not, I don't have a list of what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, I was curious, what are you referring to? I mean, guying, pole, like
Guying,
pulled out, what is that? So I mean, guying
Lash
sometimes
wire,
happens.
it's been just bug nut off for right now to get relashed. Drops that are sagging that are zip tied.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that's,
Instead of being lashed
that's a
through,
long, yeah, that.
down guys that didn't get placed at the same time a transfer happened, but a ram's head was placed, like, you know, obvious stuff. So part is if a repair or something or maintenance item can't be completed, how is that being notated and tracked?
Sure, yeah, what I'd say is that, you know, like internally, for any type of project work or anything, we use monday.com for tracking statuses of things, right? So if we know about it, it would be tracked and we would track it to completion, right? So until we got a sign off from a contractor saying that it was done. And I think you and I talked about this a while ago here, and what I would ask you again is, you know, if anybody were to run into anything that they think is subpar or there's a problem, I mean, a quick email to our staff and we'll dig into it, right?
With the photos, nice.
With the photos, yeah,
Photos
ideally,
helpful.
lat longs, you know, whatever, right?
I mean, we could address that, but Chris, we've talked before, I've sent you emails that have never gotten responses. But we can go like Otter Creek Lane is still not repaired from a burn through that happened well over a year ago. But that should be considered, we've talked about like where this stuff is on escalation list. I've asked that means going, what's the escalation? What do you consider high priority? What do you consider low priority? And if you consider high priority, what's the expectation that the town can have, how long that high priority repair should take to be completed?
Sure.
At its maximum.
Sure.
But we're dealing over a year.
Yeah, I mean,
honestly,
honestly,
Creek Lane, it's not been repaired.
so I need the data, Frank, right? Like, I mean, again, you know, when we last talked before, I mean, if you can just send us the data.
Are you saying that you're not aware that the repair on Otter Creek?
So if this is the one that had that bypass, is that what you're talking about, where there was a separate drop that was ran to reach another splice case? Is that this one or is this a different one? I don't.
I'm
12 count fire, you gotta rerun.
It was where, I think, Paige might know more exactly, but it was a power burn through the guide, through the strand, through the fiber. Now, the guy is still laying on the ground, all coiled up, nice, it just needs a splice to it, or another piece put in to make up for it. But.
So things like
how
that.
is that?
So here's what I'd say, is things like this, we need to reset and get a list of everything and tackle it immediately. So something like that is a critical item, right? We can't fix things that we don't have a record of right now. So you saying this right now, and you're writing down, right? So we
I
can
see it on this.
So my question,
So is it on the list for the
Seven
Monday?
two.
Okay,
but my question.
so it is being tracked.
How's it being tracked and how are
Monday.
we over a year out?
Monday.com, that one in particular, I'm not sure why that one was taking so long. So I'd have to dig into that.
I mean, pedestal at the end of Keller Point Road or a handhold that has a trash can over top of the fiber. Like, these
There's
are
a lot
the
of little
things.
things, but I'd say, Frank, you have a list, in my opinion, there's a couple, 3 or 4 that are high priority that really do need to be tended to. The one in particular, and I can get you the specifics, it should be on the list. East Shore Drive, there's a pole where it's broken off at the guy. Something Andy looked at and said, yeah, this has to be dealt with.
Okay.
That's
probably on the Monday.com list.
that's dangerous. A lot of the other ones, yeah, sure, they gotta be fixed, and
That should be
tracking them and
listed
knowing
as
how it
like
happens is good, but there's a couple.
The one you just mentioned should be.
Coming out of you.
Yeah,
but
Agreed.
and that goes to like,
Because you know,
as you have
splice should
resources
be
or
on-
not,
or
it's
replacement
critical.
should be on.
Yeah, the 12
Where's-
fiber.
Like I asked, I mean, is there a list from GWI Mac Mountain that talks about this falls under critical, this falls under moderate, this falls under when we can, and what the reasonable expectation for that to happen
Okay,
is?
so that's fair. So here's what I'd say, right, is a part of the Gaia and the Monday rollout, right? Anything that we're tracking in Monday, anything we know about, the town will eventually, like, as soon as we share the board, the town would have visibility into that. So the town would be the ones that would keep us honest for, hey, you know, Bovar, why is this still not done yet, right? Like, I mean, that would be the idea of that, right? I mean, we want to be held accountable if we're dropping the ball here, right? And, you know, it sounds like you have some concerns that some of them sound like some of them are on the list. I don't have updates. That's obviously I'm on Monday right now, so I don't know what those updates are. But anything that's high priority, so if you kind of had another question in there about, how do you classify, critical or not, right? Anything that's obviously affecting multiple customers is the highest priority, right? So any line level stuff, any backbone stuff, things like that. Individual.
Chris, the agreement lays it out. I mean, it's
No, understood, right. Yeah, but that's, the agreement lays it out for outages, right? I mean, we're talking about maintenance repairs, and that's.
But it doesn't lay out a time frame.
I'm sorry?
But it doesn't lay out a time frame.
Correct.
So the agreement doesn't lay out a time frame.
Because we couldn't, right? Because it was, what if the town couldn't afford it, right? Like, we can't be held to something that the town doesn't potentially, or they could potentially refuse, right? So the way the agreement is set up is that we're supposed to be managing the process. So if there's something we're not managing, that's when we'll dig in and we're gonna figure out, get an answer and get it done. Again, total reset. I mean, we need to get, if there's 4 items that need to be fixed and we have 4 items on the list, Bohar will get us dates and we will have dates of the stuff will get completed.
And if there's a list, I think it would make sense for us, we don't want to assume our list is complete. We're not trying to put work back on the town or anything, but for this total reset, we need to make sure we're all working off the same list, right? So we might have a list, and I apologize, I don't know this gentleman's name. But,
it's Frank.
But Frank might have a list, and if they're not the same, then we're never going to succeed, right? So let's make sure we have the right list. Attack it in the way that we all agree upon is the priority and go from here. The reset will take a little input from both sides, unfortunately, just to make sure we start out on level playing ground to meet your expectations of what the priorities are. And yes, you'll have access to the Monday board, and hopefully those instances of, hey, why isn't this done, will be few and far between, because we're going to get in a cadence of communication and understanding what the priority is today. And then if next week there's something that supersedes that, we're all going to agree that supersedes that, and we're going to go from there. So if we could just get the right list, make sure we can say what we have, and you can add to it or subtract from it or prioritize it. But I think it's important to get that list straight. Frank seems to be frustrated, and we understand that, and we want to address where the frustration is coming from. We can't change where we've come from. We're trying to change where we're going to.
I can appreciate that, and I appreciate that. It's been kind of the same thing for many years now, and I am not someone that would be privy to the list that's being handed out. You can see that it's still not happening. If CMP says you got 45 days from when a poll gets placed to get your transfer done, and we're, I think, a year past this snapped off poll that we talked about on East Shore Drive, that to me doesn't seem like the INB needs to come to GWI and say, hey, GWI, we've got a broken pole here, and we've got stuff in critical infrastructure that can go at any moment. And certainly that shouldn't take a year. And if you had someone out doing a reasonable inspection audit, however you guys folks want to word it, or who's responsible for what, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's the customer and what needs to be done. I could care less whether that's an INB thing or a GWI thing. Is you have infrastructure that's going to have a problem and it's not being cared for, regardless of whose fault it is or who point fingers. It's not cared for.
Yeah,
and we can all agree that there's no reason it should have been that. And GWI had a rep that saw it, right? That knows about it. The town knows about it, and it just doesn't get taken care of. It doesn't matter what
that might be taken care of already. Unless you looked at it this morning, but I think that East Shore Drive, I see it here, broken pole, bone attachment, dangerous transfer. That might have been done already.
Yeah, I mean, it may have at the beginning of June. I want to say it wasn't. I mean, I think.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're trying to catch up, clean up, resets. I mean, this is clearly a problem, right? And it's a problem that we're committed to solving. And and you may not be privy to the list, but what I'd say is you have conduits, right? You have representatives you can talk to and make sure that they feel the same sense of priority, and that. Right, and you guys would add it to the list. You'd say, GWI, make sure this is a priority, right? I mean, that's, or like I said, I mean, you have my email address. We've talked plenty of times, right? I mean, if you want to share that stuff with us directly, we can add it to the list ourselves as well.
Chris, I got a question about this. So you're saying the direction is 2 steps. One is there's a list, that list refined, cleaned up, justified, whatever. That's being put in Monday.com.
It's already in Monday. Yeah, I've been working with that with Andy.
Is that something you're saying IMB is gonna have access to?
They will have access.
What's the timeline?
To get access?
Or 2 things. One is
Yeah.
it is in Monday.com.
It is
That's
in
how
Monday,
it's being managed?
Correct.
That's what you're looking at now?
I use Monday on a spreadsheet.
But it's in Monday.
It is in Monday.
Okay.
It's easier for me just to have this spreadsheet and harp on Dave and the teams.
So the idea then is, when do they get that?
So what, at the conclusion of this meeting, we'll put together some timelines and exactly, I want to roll that out at the same time we do like the shared Google Drive and, the inventory, we'll move that all together so that it's one share. This is where you're gonna have access. This is how you can access Guy. We'll set up the training for that. And even the Monday board, we want you to understand what that means, right? So what do our statuses mean? What do the comments mean? And if you have different attributes you want to add, we can be amicable to that, right? So. But it already exists, so to share that, we'll do in pretty short order.
As part of all this, we need to ensure role-based access control, right? And we need to identify who should have access to what. We're not in the business of opening up access to anybody and everybody to customer data. So we need to be mindful of that moving forward.
Right. Part of operating multiple networks.
Right. You mentioned, Chris, about this, there's been, I know Paige brought up before, you brought up in this meeting about fibers pulling out of some of the SCA cases, right? And some of that, from what I see, is because you've had a tree limb come down or whatever, pull the fiber a little bit, but by relashing or repulling, you'll get that inch or 2 back, be able to place it back in the case. I don't want to make no mistake here. You made a comment that sometimes the only way to fix that is to have it resplice, and that's a lot. But currently we have
Sometimes it is.
but currently we have 24-inch SCAs. They make 34s.
Sure.
So we could essentially, if it came down to instead of
Yeah,
splicing it, we can just expose a little more cable and fix it with a larger SCA as opposed to having the town.
In some cases, yes. I mean, again, there's no scenario, Frank, where we waste the town's money. And, and we've been transparent about these every single step of the way. This guy's the expert in that, right? Not me. So Bohar would create whatever scope work was necessary.
And there's always, I mean, these are unicorns, every one separate, right?
Yeah.
You can't stockpile 36-inch cases to make up for it, but we can, it's a viable option. We don't have to, we can D and read if we need to pull 2 inches to get in there, no problem, right? I'm not looking to make extra work for anybody.
Yeah,
We're trying to get it done.
No, I agree.
Correct,
As
easy as possible.
an outsider looking, going, okay, this has gone on for how long, and this is something that can be repaired, and it's not very costly, it's not very big, but it can be very costly and very big if not cared for.
Yeah. Some kinds it's lead times on stuff too, right? Like some equipment that we might want to use might be 8 weeks out versus, okay, well, we could just run, 2 spans of new fiber.
But I think that went back to what I've heard in all these meetings is that the IMB and GWI are gonna get together with a spares inventory of what they should be carrying for spares between fiber, cases, stuff like that. When I've asked about that, that still seems to be a lingering thing of what should be carried and have right here, ready to go. And I would imagine that some 34-inch cases and some 24-inch cases and some other stuff, we should already, with how long we've had the network, have in inventory. I mean, that's reasonable, but
It's reasonable and it should be. I don't know what your inventory count is. It sounds like the inventory hasn't been as well tracked, but
There's an item that I brought to you, Barry. You didn't bring that up on this one. From my perspective, inventory, we've had the conversation multiple times in the past. The short of it, I give my view, what the real view is, you guys are gonna sort out. But my view is, we should locally manage the inventory, but you guys should advise and oversee, make sure we've got it. And that's not happening. So, we have parts, we have some parts, but definitely we need more parts, there's no question. But some of that is a real question of who's doing what work, when, what the timing is, what's wise to spend on. Excuse me, but indeed, I think that's an area, I think you guys wanna really take a look at is some of the inventory oversight.
Yeah, absolutely. But to be clear, I mean, the from even our conversation earlier, the inventory is on us, right? And so we will figure out exactly what the inventory stock is, where it's located. We'll obviously leverage your storage container when that shows up and put all the OSP stuff in there, right? I mean, that is something that we absolutely, if you're proposing something with the town of like where you guys manage that and you kind of, manage the counts, then, I mean, that's fine. We just need to know if that's true, because that does change.
Everything has to stay synced.
Yeah, exactly. That's my big concern, right? So I don't want to confuse anybody, like the things right now, we're still gonna own this, right? And so obviously we just did a quick inventory at the POP. We'll go and provided we have enough time, we'll go and take
Afterwards, I can show you some things. I mean.
yeah, so that's it, right? So we want to reset the inventory. We'll throw that all in the spreadsheet, put that spreadsheet in there. So now we all have a baseline, right? I mean, it's a part of this whole process. So that will be the inventory list, and we all will know that that's all that we know of, right? And then the counts, recommendation for the counts between these two, we would absolutely put a recommendation. Now you can take that recommendation or not, right? But I mean, that's what we think, right? Based off our experience. Right?
Oh, good. I'm just saying, I didn't hear it discussed, but.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean, I mean, there's stuff available, Chris, as you know, like there's sometimes stuff available, it gets in a pinch, there is inventory around sometimes, and I think I reached out, when you've had prior people, I mean, I probably have about 70,000 inventory just sitting on the island in and of itself, so, I mean, it's not like, we shouldn't not do something while we wait for it, but it seems, so forth. There was, when we talked about repairs or whatever, there's some fibers that I think went bad that Paige had talked about, we had to roll over some up on Main Road. I think Gil Rivera was one of them. I brought this up a couple of years ago about, is this being fixed or just abandoned? There's something, I think, too low of a light level and so forth. So is that still part of your Monday thing? Is it still in there of like trying to track down some of these fibers that have to have been reassigned while they get repaired?
You mean as a whole or just as one instance?
I don't know. I think it's just a few on a repair. Because I'm thinking when you're having we've had this conversation before, if you had a company come out and do a 144 burn repair done, are they doing OTDR shots and saving files to send back to GWI so that GWI knows that the repair is done in a proper manner that meets spec?
So what I'd say is that typically with an OTDR, we wouldn't do that because we would have to take down services that were already restored to do an OTDR, right? So no, I mean, we wouldn't typically do that, but what we would see is optical light levels previously and after, and if they're all within, I know it's one component, but that's the best litmus test we'd have. And then we flag, I mean, obviously if ONTs are reporting low light level, then we look at that.
So I don't know if if those ones had been fixed, like I didn't know Rivera, or you said there's a few that went up there that had to be rolled to a different fiber because the light level was a little too far out for it to stay locked on. I mean, have those been addressed and put back into service so that they're good?
No, not as far as I'm aware, but I think that goes back to some of what was talked before. Is that I think some of that's gonna come when there's a good, we have good access to watching the Vetro data, and when things occur, we know that, okay, it was, changes were made and updates were documented.
So did you make changes that we were unaware of, or were we aware of them?
No, I worked with you guys.
So then why wouldn't you believe that the Vetro was updated then?
Well, the primary reason is I got sent to got told to reassign one fiber, and at another point got told to use that fiber for another job. And it's like, well, you can't use the same fiber for two, obviously, so.
Yeah, how many fibers are we talking, like one fiber on,
No,
like
what
what, 12 count or one?
in this particular instance, what Frank is raising is Rose tube was getting pinched by a hose clamp, and one of the SCA's tree had fallen on it, and it was in a cluster of a tree. And so that problem had been mitigated. It's not totally repaired, but it's mitigated, so it's not occurring more. But until we found that problem, several fibers, I'd say maybe 4, I'm not sure, I'd have to try to look at notes, were reassigned.
So can I ask a question here? Sorry. Oh, sorry, Paige. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Were you finished? Sorry, I thought you were pausing. Am I understanding Paige and Frank are contractors for the? I'm trying to understand because you both have a lot of information, so I'm just trying to place
Correct. Yeah.
kind of roles. is there, to avoid what we're talking about, I think what we've talked about is the process. What's the process for when contractors do work that we understand that it's done, just from my own knowledge and for us to all level set? How do we know that this work is done and that our system is updated? Does Paige update it and Frank update it, or do we update it?
So that somebody in the engineering team would obviously generate a scope of work and say, these are the fibers that need to be respliced, this is what it looks like. Or if there's an outage or something critical we don't know yet, obviously we work with somebody on site, and then they'd roll out and give us some on the in the field type of feedback.
Yep.
We'd update our system ideally right then, but sometimes it doesn't happen until next morning. But that's the feedback loop. And then at the end of that, outages are handled differently because we want to roll quickly, and it may be done in email. I mean, it may not be a formal scope of work. But any type of maintenance work would absolutely be done with, here's the scope of work, this is what we expect. We expect a contractor to give us, I mean, if it's new splicing or something, some OTDR results, some testing results, ideally pictures, right? I mean, we likely will roll out at some point, actual pictures of the work completed. So we can have a long-term history of that as well. But that's what closes out the job is when the feedback loop reaches back to the fiber engineering team.
It's considered an as-built. Is what we'd call it, as built in the field, and it gets updated.
But you're not getting any OTDR results from a repair like a 144 for anyone who's not in service. So any of the spare ports that are coming out of the FDH that have been also spliced back through, we're not gathering any OTDR results to make sure that we've got some spares that we had to roll to that are good to go.
So I'll speak a little bit for you, Bohar, but in general, we would not have a contractor spend extra hours in the middle of the night to do testing like that, right? I mean,
go back and do it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, if we're assuming an outage type scenario, right?
I'm just talking in general, but whether that's tonight, tomorrow,
if it's planned maintenance,
start going to be like, okay, we good. And we can also be honest here. I don't know that there's much of a major repair being done overnight here in Islesboro. It's always been during the day or whatever. And I agree, doesn't necessarily need to be on that point, but at some point, right?
Yeah.
Contract I've had
planned work
says that all your splicing has to be accompanied by TDR results showing and proving that it's good.
Yeah.
So, we can move off of that. I'm sure we spent days and years on this one, but I want to ask about the Vetro. I've heard this brought up several times with IND, and you talked to them about a price and so forth. Mm-hmm. What was the major roadblock of just maintaining I thought very well done Excel sheets by waveguide, because we're such a small amount of people and the way the bills were laid out very well? What has prevented that from just being maintained so that the town wouldn't have to spend thousands or lots of money each year to be able to gain access to Vetro, and just maintaining those sheets?
So here's what I would say, Frank, is that the town pays us a lot of money to be the operator, right? To maintain that data, right? If the town wants the data, we can export those as Excel spreadsheets right now, right? But we're not going to work out of Excel spreadsheets, because that is woefully inadequate when you're trying to troubleshoot a network, right? It's fine for a splice case, right? If that's what I'm trying to do, but when you're trying to create a circuit and understanding, the A to Z and whatever splice case you're jumping across, Vetro makes that trivial and accurate, right? So we work out of Vetro, we're licensed Vetro, we manage the data out of Vetro. If the town is the owner of the network wants it, we can export it at any time, right? But what we're not gonna do is, again, just do daily exports, right? Something ridiculous like that, because also, why would the town want that? Barry, do you want to know all the splicings on the network?
I've seen an Excel download, and I try to sort it out. You can do it, but it's not fun.
It's not fun at all, right? So that's the reason, right? Is that for operational efficiency, Vetro is the goal.
I get that. I was just saying, why the town would need to spend money if they can get it another version.
Yeah, and they could.
Instead of saying, let's get you a license and a seat to log in a Vetro, we just say, well, we can send you a sheet, or we can have a backup sheet. And I think the only other thing I had was this Wi-Fi has come up again, kind of over and over again in a few meetings, and it keeps coming up. I want to talk about the upgrade, but you talk about the Wi-Fi. Who's billing for those services? I think when it was asked about that might renegotiate kind of contract of if they started offering a whole mesh system and a possibility of who pays and this like that. Is that Is that a service that GWI is looking to be able to provide, or that the town would, and then would that get billed to the customer for anything that's wrong in there, or would the town just continue to foot the bill for truck rolls on that?
So I reflect back on you, who is the ISP? The town. So the town offers the services. The town dictates the prices, the town dictates the service levels, right? So that it's quite, I mean, quite simply, that's all it is. So if the town wanted to offer a mesh service, now, of course, that could substantially change what we're offering. So if you said, I want to offer streaming video to pool houses or something, right? Like, that's not something that we currently have contemplated from a support structure. So we give you a price that would change that cost per unit, obviously up to support that, right? So that's how that works. But so us supporting the services is what our agreement is. The services themselves, you guys can sell anything you want, right?
But providing that support, if they went to that network, would increase the possible cost for the subscriber between the town and GWI. Because it'd be an additional service, or are you folks saying that part of your contract, you would provide that service when the town decided to offer that?
So we already, right, so we already provide basic wireless support, right? Wireless service support as a part of the contract, the way that it's priced, right? So that's using the Calix support cloud system, right? So we already have the ecosystem, we already know how to support it, it's not a burden. If the town chose to do a different system, that would change the costing structure for us, in which case we would change that cost per unit. Right.
And then the upgrade, you talk about XG-PON, right? That would also mean, I've seen the prices that you guys gave about upgrading and new splitters and devices and so forth. I didn't see in there, the town would also have to then increase their circuits, correct? You guys would highly recommend from their 10 gig circuit,
No, because as a part of our agreement, the baseline cost of this per customer includes internet uplink bandwidth. So the town does not pay a separate uplink circuit. So the only real concern for congestion is what's on the node level.
So if they moved up to the XG-PON and the amount of data being transmitted increased, that would not cost the town any more.
Correct.
If this circuit had to be moved from a 10 to 100 gig.
Yeah, and actually the inverse happens, Frank, right? So our experiences clearly showed that if you uncap bandwidth, people get on and off faster. So the bandwidth consumption actually decreases at peak instead of increasing. So we've seen that phenomenon time and time again, and that's usually a pretty good way to understand, like how as your bandwidth increases, it's probably a retransmits, congestion, a lot of that stuff.
Okay. All set? Okay, thank you.
I got two more things if I can bring them up. Try to be quick with them. One is, one thing I'd recommend, I feel real pain of missing is the role that Donna Durkin used to fill, where there was a single point of contact, an account manager assigned to Islesboro. And so whenever things were going wrong, someone was on vacation, whatever it was, didn't matter. We could go to Donna and she would connect the dots and make things happen quickly. That's painfully missing now, so we'd love to see that come back. And along those lines, something I think personally would be very good in terms of support moving into the future is if there were support was streamlined for the island. What I found a number of times is the generic support, they don't understand the island network, and users get told wrong information. So we can get into the details. The short of it is, consider something like there's another 800 number that serves the island and for calling in, and that number and the existing number both can go to the same place. So calling the existing number, there could be an menu option on there, Islesboro support. And that would take you to a point that this other 800 number would. And then the people that man that number, that run that number, that menu option, they're trained in Islesboro issues.
Sure, yeah, it's something we can definitely evaluate. I mean, Tevis has done some extensive research on costing models and what that looks like, for various customers. I mean, you're not unique in that respect. The custom queues is always desirable. So we can definitely dig into that for you. I mean, as far as the Donna Durkin piece, let's just say we're working on a single point of contact. I don't want to share that at all right now because we want to flush it out. But we will get back to you with a more clear-cut path of communication as well as escalations. Right, that's the key. I mean, regardless of who we put in that seat, if you're not getting what you need, you still want to contact the rest of the people that are on this call.
Fair enough.
Any other
Real quick,
comments?
we actually did implement a new toll-free number for Islesboro a couple months ago. I don't know whether or not that was communicated out. We had talked about the town sending out some communication. I don't know where that landed, but there is a dedicated line specifically for Islesboro now, and that's separate from GWI. And so when they do call that number, tickets are automatically associated with their the Islesboro account IDs as well.
Okay, thank you.
Well, one way or another, we should follow up on that.
Okay.
Happy to participate.
We need to conclude the meeting and we need to call for a motion for adjournment.
I moved, we adjourn.
Okay. Second, I you guys aren't gonna vote, but.
I second.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Thank you. Well, thanks all for coming and thanks for the sharing of information.
Thanks all.
And we need to maintain the contact.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks all.
Chris.